Jim, it's always a pleasure to be in Delaware County.
It sure is.
It's my home away from home.
Since 1960, when you started, you've called races covering at least 144 tracks in 19 states and 8 countries. And that's in 58 years that you've been calling races.
Yes, and it's not as bad as it sounds, because once you get used to something, you're almost on like you're on cruise control. I added a new track this year. I went out to Running Aces in Columbus, Minnesota, and did a night's races out there. And I make my regular trip to Ireland. I've been there for 6 straight years. And county fairs in Ohio and Pennsylvania, state fairs in West Virginia. If I can work it into the schedule, I go. I'm full-time announcer at the Meadows, south of Pittsburgh. We race 205 days a year, and I take my 25 vacation days and go elsewhere.
And call races.
Call races. One year, I went to Myrtle Beach with the family. The week before the Judd.
Oh, really?
The second day we were there, I was ready to come home and go to Delaware. I cannot vacation.
A few weeks ago, you hit a major milestone.
180,000 races.
180,000.
And that 170,000 was the first year I went over to Ireland. And I'm doing about 2,500 races a year. I've done as many as 4,000, but we have backed off a little. Well, I was going to be a school teacher because I wanted to announce horse races in the summer. And it was a good summer job to go along with teaching school 9 months of the year. The problem was that the day I got my diploma, they hired me to work the Red Mile in Lexington, Kentucky, and I never taught school. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
I'd probably be dead by now.
that started the career. You just
Well, that got it into the parimutuel ranks. Before that, it had been county fairs only.
I saw on Facebook the other day where you let a young man call a race. I believe it was his first race.
Well, he's actually younger than that. And it wasn't the Greene County Fair, but I've got a boy by the name of Dylan Doherty, and he's 9 now. And this was his 3rd year. He started calling races at the age of 7. Now, believe me, he's a 7-year-old, he's an 8-year-old, he's a 9-year-old. He's not polished, but he has the enthusiasm and the will to be an announcer, and that's number one. The fine-tuning will come with age.
and experience.
And yes, no doubt about that. One way or another, I've probably touched 35 announcers over the years. And I'm proud of that. Some it was just a little help, some of it was a lot of help. There's a boy by the name of Doug Ballinger. I say a boy, but he took over most of my county fairs here in Ohio when Pompano Park in Florida decided to race quarter horses, and I had to stay there in the summer. So I heard this young man call a qualifying race at Scioto Downs when he was probably 16, 17 years old. And this is his 50th year announcing races. And he's going to call a race Wednesday at Delaware, and I want him to call because it is his 50th year, and that's how long we've been associated. A guy by the name of Doug Ballinger from Salina, Ohio. He's now retired and living in Florida. And hey, do you know what's that word retirement mean? I'm not sure.
You've also called some very unique races.
The Children's Zoo in Pittsburgh decided to have baby races, and I mean babies. They had up to 2 years, and then they had 2 to 4, and mother would get at one end and turn the baby loose, and the dad would be at the other end of the track, and whatever baby got there first would be the winner. But the wildest one was probably, Pittsburgh is known for its inclines, the Mount Washington incline and the Duquesne incline. And this is a trolley car, basically, it goes up the side of the mountain. So a radio station decided to have, on the 150th anniversary or 100th anniversary, to have an incline race. So they put me in a helicopter medevac helicopter, 2,000 feet above the three rivers, to call this incline race that lasted all of about 28 seconds, something like that, from top to bottom. I guess I can say this. That same radio station one year decided to have what is right before the Indianapolis 500, to have a race called the Undy 500, where men and women in their underwear would race around the racetrack for a half a mile. And they called me to call that race. And that's one of the races I'm very proud of. I kept it straight.
I was going to say, were you distracted?
Let's put it this way, I didn't need binoculars, but I used them.
How about your annual trip to Ireland?
Well, it's known as the Vincent Delaney Memorial, and Vincent died at the age of 27 after competing in a marathon race. And his two brothers, who were also involved in harness racing along with Vincent, wanted a race in his memory. So they developed this 2-year-old race for pacers. Eliminations would be held on Saturday and the final on Sunday. And I wasn't there the first year, but they wanted to go big time, so to speak. So they brought me over to Dublin, Ireland the second year, and we've gone back now for 6 straight years. It's a second week of August, and it's a great affair, and they treat it like the Kentucky Derby. The women all dress up in their finery, the hats and the dresses and everything like that. And it's a fun weekend, and I enjoy it.
Your two daughters have very unique names. Can you tell me how they got the names?
Well, the first daughter, I started looking through racing programs at the Red Mile in Lexington, Kentucky, and I found a horse by the name of Cammie Sue, which I thought was a cute name, so I named her Cammie Sue. And by the time she got into about the 6th grade or so, Hoofbeats did an article on the fact that she was named after a horse. So kids at school, being the mean little kids that they can be, called her Horseface and things like that, and she got kind of upset. Why did you name me after a horse? So when I got to Lexington that year, Jack Ball of Almahurst Farm, I told him about it, and he says, well, I'll name a horse after her. And he named the horse Cammie Almahurst, who Gene Riggle had and was a world champion as a 2- and 3-year-old. So Cammie Sue didn't mind being named after a horse because she had a horse named after her. The other daughter is named Neville, the pride of the Huston family, for Neville Pride. I have a grandson that is named Tyler B., who raced in the Little Brown Jug. So if you can't come up with names for your youngsters or grandchildren, go to the horses' names. I hate those 18 letters all as one word, and they leave some letters out, and it's up to the announcer to figure out what that owner meant by that conglomeration of letters that they've come up with. And some of them, you look at them and you just can't come up with a pronunciation, and then when they tell you how to pronounce it, oh, why didn't I think of that, you know.
So easy. If you
I hate that naming of horses that way, though.
And I'm going to close with this, but we don't want to forget that there is a new book coming out, released, and Kelly Bell, my partner, is going to be talking to you about that shortly.